So then we are back with more understandings from the time of the second tabernacle services, where we find the Aramaic English translation of the word. This translation comes from the original manuscripts of the prophets of the Israelic lineage, so then we can understand the time of the end. As per Yeshayahu the prophet, we find layers of understanding of the spring feast, the autumn feast, and also the returning of the cities of the Messiah laid waste from many centuries. As we read then Yeshayahu the prophet, let's then make an evaluation what we can read as far as Yeshayahu chapter then the 61st, and then let's read in link with Leviticus the 23rd chapter, so then we understand what was the objective of Moses, the objective of the Messiah himself, and how each person then should face the holy instructions on their own quests of saving their own souls. Because each of us, we are then endowed with a certain knowledge, where then each of us must stand before the Creator himself, and we must then find ourselves worthy of becoming saved. Now, there are a few situations regarding then what's going on in the world as far as we can understand as church. There are some sort of information these people preach, but the point is, from the original manuscripts, what then God is saying as far as what his son was going to do, and then the Shilishim or apostles, as we perfectly know as far as the Messiah then completing the spring feast. Let's then start by reading what then Shaliach Shaul has said regarding then the work of the kingdom. As far as what he said in 1 Corinthians 7, he mentions, and concerning the situations that he had wrote. Obviously, every time Shaliach Shaul was writing, it was concerning then the completion of the spring feast. Many people, when they read the holy instructions, they are after some sort of a power of their own. That's why most of these churches, they don't have the functions, because they simply invent their own ways of receiving power. Then it is praiseworthy for a man not touch a woman. So let's understand where Shaliach Shaul is coming from. And the point is Shaliach Shaul against the relationship? Could then Shaliach Shaul be against what God had instituted? But because of a sexual temptation, let each have his own wife, and let a woman have her own husband. And let the man render to his wife then the kind and love and so on and so forth, and that is due. And so also the woman to her husband. Then the woman is not sovereign of her own body, but her husband, and vice versa. Therefore do not deprive one another, except when both they consent for a time to devote yourselves to fasting and prayer. So then, later on he says, for I desire that every man might be like me in purity. But every man is endowed with a function from Elohim, one thus and another so. So then, Shaliach Shaul is involving himself with the objective and the task of informing his people of the completion of the spring feast. There was no other objective than this. The situation is not a relationship, or not a having relationship at this point, or then the functions themselves. Shaliach Shaul was then set aside, informing his people the spring feast was completed. As he was then en route in many of the cities, then he was informing the Hebraic people the spring feast was completed. Now, when we understand this point, is very obvious. You only have the explanation of the completion of the spring feast when you understand the spring feast itself. Shaliach Shaul neither the Spirit, they would both engage themselves in trying to explain what the Torah had taught if they did not have the knowledge of understanding it, because the rest of the world, they are having themselves fed from the corners that the Hebrews left as per the instructions of the Creator. So those people, they don't know how to plant the field, they only know how to eat the corners. And because of these, then these people, the corner eaters, they have developed for themselves a moral system of their own. They are not interested in finding out how the Hebrews planted the field. They only want the produce of the field. Now, what is the objective as far as what these corner eaters can make for themselves as holy? They find either a husband corner eater and then a wife corner eater, and they eat where they have not sown, and they make themselves as their relationship as being of God. Now let me ask you this: how can they have their relationship being of God if they don't understand the Torah? And in fact, they reject the Torah, yet they make themselves godly because of what God says, and this very God gave them the Torah and they reject. So they eat the corners and they make a God of their own. Let's then understand what Shaliach Shaul has said. If any person that comes to you, and this obviously is the 2 Corinthians 11:4, if any person comes to you and preaches or then shows you another Messiah other than the one comes from the Torah, then be sure of it, you have the false Messiah. Thus they make their God their family, yet they are corner eaters. Now, as far as people coming and helping then to plant the field itself, this truly is what then Shaliach Shaul is saying. Now, if the corner eaters, they eat every time, they won't be concerned with anything. Then they don't truly care if a person is then planting the field, harvesting the field, as long as the corners are left for them to gorge themselves with their own sins. So then, Shaliach Shaul was explaining the very core of the understanding, so then the field could be then planted. Now, he was explaining the situation of a relationship of a Hebrew person with a Gentile, either husband and wife. As he was explaining, the spring feast was completed. Then sometimes the spouses, they were not able to maintain pace with the teachings of Shaliach Shaul and what Ruach HaKodesh was requiring of them. That's why then he said, it is the best for a man not to touch a woman, because the very core of understanding of these principles is best served as far as when a person is single, because then a person does not have any kind of entanglement in life in taking care of the cares of the world. Now, the feasts of Yahweh, the truly Holy Creator is not for them to go there and having fun with it. There is an objective. The Creator has a specific word every feast of every year, and those orders is for the benefit of the salvation and maintenance of the souls of the people. Every time there is a holy feast and it's kept properly, the Holy Creator always has a word. So then, do you think these corner eaters are concerned with the words of the Creator? As long as they have corner to eat, they don't truly care. What they want is more convenience, more money, more influence as far as the world is concerned. And they don't give a rip on how to help the Holy Creator to plant the field. They truly don't care. Now, if this kind of teaching is not clearly taught in the congregation, people are always going to opt for the side of convenience. And as they do these, they are also corner eaters. Because it's not only knowing the Torah, it's knowing the Torah, the prophets, the writings, and then the complete counsel, including the Shilishim or the apostles, until Revelation or Galah. The whole counsel must be then practiced. Once again, was Shaliach Shaul against families and relationship? Now, if a person explains the Torah and the prophets and the writings and also Ruach HaKodesh, what he has done, in this tone, and causing a reaction, then what is the purpose of what the Messiah has said? The Messiah was concerned of then himself as tabernacling. Now let me ask you this. How many of us are interested in tabernacling? Then the Messiah himself, he was then and is the light of the world. He is tabernacling, and he's explaining that in the future they're going to take then the exact measurements of the tabernacle and the desert that Moses received. They're going then to set up tent for the Messiah, and then Hebrews, as far as the writings of Yohanan and his team, and they sent the documents to those 7 churches in Asia Minor, and they got straightened out. And then tabernacling was set. It was so for 1,000 years. Then the cities were no more. Then 1,000 years of deceit, known as the New World Order, ended in 2009. And for a short time, we are then during the restoration period of these holy cities. Now, these holy cities, the sole objective is directing the nations. These people are not there for the pleasure of families. That's why then Shaliach Shaul said regarding this specific objective, and he was preparing his people for this very purpose, and if they were entangled with the world, they would not produce. During this period of time, We are then encountering many nations going through many financial troubles as far as the Eurozone. But China has 57% of the world's trade by itself, and the new system is coming. Simultaneous with the system comes tabernacling. So let's be aware, we understand we are during the Dragonic period as far as the Gentile world is concerned, and also tabernacling as far as we understand as salvation. Let's understand very precisely this very topic, because it's the core of the whole understanding. So please stay tuned, much more coming up.